Anyway, I really appreciate that. The voice of Jesus calling us out, just like Lazarus. And that's what God wanted me to read. A bunch of you probably already know it. Maybe a lot of you have heard it. But the story of Lazarus. He was a guy that died. And then Jesus called him out of the grave. And he walked out. But anyway, the scriptural account of that is John chapter 11. And I'm going to go ahead and read most of that, because it really applies to us. Somewhere we hear the voice of Jesus calling us. We've discussed that in here before. But he calls us no matter where we're at. No matter how dead we may be. No matter how wrong we may be. No matter how goofy we may be. He still calls us by name. Come out! Come out! Come out! But it's not just to come out and go out there and do something. No, come out to life. Come out to live. Come out to be who God dreamed and created you to be. And live life to the fullest, whatever that looks like. Each one of us has a different adventure, a different path, called by the same God. And we're all got different things we're supposed to accomplish while we're here on this earth. But we're going to read the story of this. I'm going to go through this. This is the New International Version, John chapter 11, New Testament Gospel. The death of Lazarus. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sister sent to Jesus, word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Verse 5. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. Verse 11. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. 16. Then Thomas said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Verse 23, Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world." After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at a place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Verse 34. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Verse 35, Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Verse 38. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been in there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe you have sent me." Verse 43. When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." And that's where I want to stop. That's why I like that song. We may not have been physically dead, but we were spiritually dead. We were mentally dead. Fouled up in every which way, most of us, that you could even imagine or never dream could happen. I found stuff I never knew I could find. Mess and disaster. But I heard Jesus call my name. Now in this story, Lazarus had only been dead 4 days. A lot of us, including me, had been dead for years. Not physically dead, but dead up here. Dead physically, dead spiritually, dead emotionally. Dead in many areas. You might be walking around, but you might be just a zombie, a shell. You don't know what you're doing. You don't give a rip. You don't give a rat's hind end. Life means nothing. You're not physically dead, but you're dead to everything else. Except pain. You're not dead to pain. You can be by doing stuff. A lot of us have tried that. But I'm so thankful that Jesus calls us by name. He's not unaware of what we're going through, what has happened to us, but there's reasons and purposes. Four days later, he finally showed up. And if I understood the scripture correct, he was only a couple miles away. It wasn't that big of a deal. But for some reason, he chose to wait. He said in there is for the Son of God to be glorified. Jesus watches over and knows of us, even when it seems like we're dead, even when it seems like there's no hope. And that's what I appreciate in this room. I've seen a lot of you guys find hope. I've seen a lot of you guys get called by Jesus. I've seen a lot of you guys do amazing things. Walk out of the tombs where we've been. Walk out of the problems where we've been. And that's what I wanted to also talk about on this. I'm just going to go there right now. I talked about Jesus. Lazarus been in the tomb for 4 days. There's a foul odor. In the King James it says, he stinketh. That cracks me up. Just the way they say it, stinketh. But we weren't no different. A lot of times the way that we were, circumstances that overtook us, not even our own fault, we ended up stinking. Stinking thinking, stinking attitudes, stinking physically, stinking mentally, you name it. We stunk. He's dead, he stinks, get away from him. I've had people say that about me. You don't want no part of him. He's death, he's rotten, he's messy. But that ain't the case nowadays in me or of any of you. That's what this Christ has done and will do. If there's anybody in the room who don't know him, now's a good time. Time to get out of the stink. The stink of past lives, the stink of bad mistakes, the stink of stupid. There's lots of stinks out there. But Jesus cleans us, calls us out. And a lot of people around us can't believe that he did that to us and for us. And now he does it through us unto other people. It's absolutely amazing. And that's what that song, I really enjoyed that song because that's what it was talking about. I gotta jump to a different screen here. There we go. That song, Rise Up lyrics. It's talking about rise up Lazarus. But I found it so much more than just a song talking about a dead guy. I found it applied to me a lot of places. And that's what I was realizing it would apply to everybody in this room in one way or another. In the dark and all alone. This is the song, the first lyrics. In the dark and all alone, growing comfortable. Are you too scared to move and walk out of this tomb? Many times I was in the dark. It was easier just to stay there. I didn't have to face anything, especially my own fear. I didn't have to face that. I didn't have to face rejection. I didn't have to face mess. It was more comfortable just stay where I was at, stay in the dark, stay back from people, stay in that tomb. It goes on to say, buried underneath the lies that you believed, safe and sound, stuck in the ground, too lost to be found. It's safe to be lost. It's safe to go hide. But it's not what God wants. He wants to come and find you, even if you stink it, even if you've been gone for a long time. And that's what I appreciate. So many of you have been found. And before I even showed up here, it was amazing the people that are in this room and how they grow and what they do and what God has done for you. It amazes me. It amazes me that I have the opportunity to speak into your life, that God allows me to. It humbles me that he trusts me to speak to people who have been in dark places and are now walking out and to help and assist. It amazes me that God allows me that privilege. I'm just a guy. We've talked about this. Lies that we believed. We don't believe we can be saved. We don't believe we're worthy. We don't believe we're worth anything. That's what the devil wants to tell us. Months ago, we talked about Rocky Balboa and where he was going to punch it out with Clubber Lang. Well, Clubber Lang punched him out. And all the bluster and the fury of Clubber Lang. You're just a brother. How he just gets in your face. That's the devil pushing on us. Lies we believed. Clubber Lang in your face. I'm going to take you, boy. I'm coming around. No, that ain't the case. Those are lies we believe, but we're not worth anything. But Jesus says we are. Well, he's all right. Just fell out of the chair. Okay. But lies we believed, and lies that people spoke about us, other human beings spoke about us, whether it be family members or who knows what, loved ones, children, parents, whoever it is, spoke to us, spoke what they believed we were, what they called us. We believe that stuff, but God says, no, no, no. That's what we talked about. We don't believe that stuff. I ran into a deal this week. I think it's in the book of Joshua. The children of Israel were told to go into the land and spy it out. I'm not going to look at the scripture, just ad-lib it. I believe it was 10 or 12 spies went into the land to spy it out to see what it was like. And they came back and they said, we're like grasshoppers to these giants. They're huge men. We're like grasshoppers. And it's a good land, but we can't take it. We can't walk in it. We can't do it. It's in the book of Joshua, Old Testament. See, that's what they believed a lie. And they walked around for 40 years and never accomplished nothing. They didn't even wear out their shoes, but the only thing they did was wear themselves out to where they passed on. God would not let anybody move forward till that generation died. And that's what happens if we don't listen to God. We will wander around believing things that God said we could have had and could have done. And we'll wander around in death. And that's why it's so important that with Lazarus here. Come out. I mean, can you imagine him? He's in there dead. Does he know anything? I don't have a clue. Is he in Sheol or whatever that is? Is he up where? I have no clue what happened to Lazarus after he got put in that tomb. So I doubt he thought any thoughts, what's that sound? What's that? What? Interesting what really happened. What did that guy hear that made him? I don't know. He just woke up and stepped out. I think so much of the time that's what happens to us. We can't explain what Jesus does. We just wake up. Either one morning your eyes pop open and you go, whoa. Or all of a sudden you're walking down the street and it's like somebody slaps you and all of a sudden you have this realization that Christ is real. And he's talking to you. He's called your name. And all of a sudden, no longer can you believe the lies of whatever's been told you. No longer Clubber Lang punches you out and gets in your face. You're like, get out of here. The next line of that song says, you're just asleep and it's time to leave. I know sometimes I get locked in a dream and I can't get out of it. And all of a sudden it dawns on me I'm in a dream. And when that happens, I realize I can get out of it. It's time to leave. And that's something else that Jesus does for us. When he calls your name, man, it's time to leave. Don't mess around. If you hear him calling your name, if he's dealing with your heart, it's time to leave. Whatever he's talking to you. Leave the mess. Leave this. It's impossible. I got nowhere to stay. I got nothing to do. I've seen God change my life from dawn to dark. I went from not knowing nothing to having a bed, to having food. All of a sudden, because Jesus showed up. He showed up. He says, do this thing. I'm like, all of a sudden somebody calls you on the phone or this or that. And all of a sudden, where you were in the morning is totally different by nightfall. He showed up. He rolled away the obstacle. He took away the darkness. And he showed me that I was not too lost to be found. So that's what this song's encouraging us. Come on and rise up. Take a breath. You're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new. The power of death couldn't hold you. Top of that paragraph says, come on and rise up. Take a breath. You're alive now. And that's what I've been trying to do with what God speaks to me, is show you and teach it, make it believable, make it where a guy can understand it. I don't care if you got a Bible this thick. It does no good if you can't understand it. And that's what I've been trying to do, is feed you guys stuff you can understand, the real gospel, how it really works. Not just words on a page in a big book that people carry around on Sundays. The real gospel, the real Jesus. And if there's anybody in this room that doesn't know the real Jesus, tonight's a good time to meet him. And not pack around a big book that you don't even know what it says. Come on and rise up. Take a breath. You're alive now. And since tonight's the last night, that's what I wanted to really impress with you guys. You're alive. You've done good. You're doing great. I know I'm not the only guy that comes in here. You get a multitude of teachers. It's like a buffet. You get lots of good food. I'm not sure about the TV guys some nights, but bad joke maybe, I don't know. But you're alive now. And you can hear the voice of Jesus calling you, talking to you, walking with you day by day. Calling us to come out of the grave, but more importantly, stay out of the grave. We want to go back to convenient places. Places where it's easy. Places where it's dark, where the light don't shine on us. Nobody knows us. Leave us alone. I'm over here doing my thing. No. No more of that. Rise up. You're brand new. The power of death couldn't hold you. The power of death isn't able to hold any of us anymore once we realize that Jesus is calling our name and we take advantage of it. We can tell him to kiss off. And we can continue the way we are, in the dark, buried in a tomb. But that's not his plan. He's got a dream for us. Can you imagine that God dreams for you? He says, I got dreams of how your life could be, should be, how I'd love to have your life if you'll let me have it. And that's what I'm really pleased. So many of you guys are letting God have your life, and you're doing amazing things. And you're going places and stepping up. And you're not dragging around in a tomb. You're not dragging around your past. You're not believing the lies. Yeah, it happens. There's no way around that. But I found that God will take that, and all of a sudden I can use it. And that's what God's special in. He takes and uses our messes. Whoop. Turned my phone off, hit the wrong button. That's what I wanted to talk about. Come on out, rise up, take a breath. You're alive now. Never go back to death. Never go back to anything weird. Walk as we know how. This is my last night preaching here. I got to get ready to move. And it amazes me that God put I and her in a house. We're actually buying a house. It's not because we have a lot of money.
It's a miracle.
It's just God. And I'm like, wow. Anyway.
Did you have one more song to play?
I do, if I can, for a minute. Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, I got to dig it out of YouTube real quick. But I think it's a good way to close this out. Whoop, where'd we go here? I went the wrong direction. Where are you at? Oh, there we are. We played this song in here before, but I just thought it'd be cool tonight. There it is. Long time ago, months ago, we played this. DC Talk, Jesus Freak. And I just heard that on the radio today, and I thought that'd be the perfect way to close this out. Keep on being a Jesus freak. Never look back.